Hi, folks. Thank you for coming. This session is a Q&A session intended. The notion is that it's Thursday, so you've probably been to some Windows 10 talks. How many of you have been to a Windows 10 talk, or 2, or 3, or 4? Okay, all right. How are you liking it so far? How many of you have decided that you must have 10, that resistance is futile? That's right. We will assimilate your desktops. Okay. How many of you wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole and you're waiting for Windows 11? Because it's going to be a wait, just so you know. I'm looking forward to Windows 10. We're going to get like one new version every 4 months. Yes, upgrading 3 times a year. I find that stuff exciting because when things go wrong, I get to write an article, so. But I'm not the person who knows about this stuff. We got the team here, some terrific folks, and so fire away. Anybody got a question? Really? I'm standing up here holding my ass, and you guys don't have a single question for me. Sir. But hang on. We got to do a mic thing?
Yeah, we got mics to pass.
Okay.
Here, just pass it back to
Mr. Moskowitz, would you be so kind as to
be
my Mike Vanna?
I'll be Vanna White. Where are you? Raise your hand. Yeah,
see, this is how cool I am. I get Jeremy Moskowitz to be my mic guy. Mr. Moskowitz.
So the question is, what kind of performance improvements have they made in Windows 10 memory management, other things that you could talk about? Because
cool.
We're getting slammed with all kinds of.
Do we have somebody who could do core memory management-y kind of multitasking, scheduling sort of stuff? They're leaving me holding my ass too.
Is this on? Yeah. Kind of depends on if you're comparing it to Windows 8.1 or if you're comparing it to Windows 7 or Windows 8. So,
who are you?
Sami Laiho. Finland, Microsoft MVP. Okay. Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, so if you're comparing it to Windows 7 or Windows 8, there's a fundamental difference between the memory management of the operating system, because some people tend to think and tell me that Windows 8 and Windows 8.1 didn't have anything changed in the background, but there's a really huge thing that changed, which is that the virtual memory space of Windows 7 and Windows 8 on an x64 machine was limited to 8 terabytes, where the word limited might be quite funny now. But actually Windows 8.1 and Windows 10, the virtual memory space goes up to 128 terabytes. So there is a really big fundamental change. That's not into so much scheduling, but at least memory management, there is a really big difference. But if you're at 8.1, then it's basically the same for the virtual memory management.
Yeah, and we could add to that also that if you looked at any of the launch events where they talked about Windows 7 and Windows 8, the interesting thing was that they took the exact same machine and put Vista on it, Windows 7, Windows 8, and I haven't seen the Windows 10 thing, but in each of those cases, they actually required less memory. That's about what I got for performance. Anybody else want to add anything?
Actually, we got the mic right here for this guy.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I haven't touched this myself, but does anyone know, can you have multiple touch screens on a Windows 10 device? And if not, consider this a DCR.
Can you...
Go ahead and pass that down to this guy. I'll pick it up in a second.
Can you not use multiple touch devices on 8?
No, currently in 8, you have to, you go to control panel and say which one is the touch screen. If you have
Because I have a USB monitor, and that's a touch, and that works with my built-in one as well. Maybe because it's USB?
Maybe I'm thinking back to Windows 8.0, and maybe they fixed it in 8.1. Maybe I haven't tested it since.
Okay, cool.
Anybody know?
Do you know? Anybody know? Or is that just a question? Next. Okay, hold on. Does anybody know? This is a phone a friend. We're all friends. All right. Anybody else on the panel have an answer?
All right, go once, go into it.
All right, I'm going to pass
Go
it to you
3
and pick up
times.
the mic down there. State your name and what your story is.
Janne Pohjola, also Windows MVP. What are going to be the changes to the Windows update in Windows 10? Will it still take half an hour to run, consume half of the CPU and half of the memory, or has it been changed somehow?
How do you really feel?
No, if it's... Now, if in your experience Windows Update is running 50% of the CPU, that's only because you have 2 cores. If there were 1 CPU, it would be 100%. So I want to point out the Windows team outnumbers me, so we can't pick on them too much. So anybody, changes to performance in Windows Update?
Who else has a question? I'll stage the mic. Yep.
Please.
Part of the challenge is really the speed of scanning.
There you go.
So
Down this
most of the complaints that you would have are how long it takes to detect what updates are actually needed. And actually by releasing Windows more often and releasing updates every some number of months, we would then have a smaller number of updates to apply to any particular version of the OS. So there'll be a lot less to detect. Right now, the worst case is Windows 7. You've got about 200 updates on top of Windows 7. Every time you're doing detection, it's checking to see are all 200 of those actually applied to the machine, and that's fairly intensive. On Windows 10, hopefully we never get above maybe 50 to 100 updates before we're coming out with the next release, and it resets it back and starts over.
So it's essentially the what is it, 3 times a year, 4 times a year, or you don't know?
Every so often.
Something like that. That's essentially like a mega roll-up in that it not only gets you updated, but it puts some kind of like stake in the sand.
Resets
that says,
the baseline back
Yeah.
to a new servicing level, and we can move on from there.
Hey, when that happens, will we see, so if we're going to do this 3 times a year or whatever it turns out to be, when there's a new version, will we see new ISOs on MSDN that have the whole thing already built in there? Yes?
Yes, yeah, we'll release new ISOs with every major update. And we've also started doing that already with Windows 8.1. We've released new ISOs in April. We released new ISOs in November. We're even looking at doing that for Windows 7, SP1,
Cool.
so that you don't have to... reinstalling 200 updates is something that is painful. So
It's not the 200 updates that's painful, it's the 7 reboots. And I'm not exaggerating.
yeah, I had to build for my demos this week 3 separate Windows 7 SP1 machines, and it's literally started in the morning and hope that it's done by the end of the day.
Isn't it weird when you have to pick up an XP machine and like all those buttons that you're used to, you know, like the first time you look at an XP machine in 3 years and you realize you don't understand the interface anymore. That's it's a mind shift. Another question.
All right. Yeah, Shane Carillion. The question's on SMB and file and print sharing. Is there going to be will there be a problem in connecting to from a Windows 10 to Windows Vista, Windows 7, CDAW, Admin DAW, or vice versa, having Windows 7 machine connect to Windows 10? Has there been a change in SMB at all that would prevent that?
Okay, so there's been changes, big changes in SMB, monstrous ones from 2012 / Windows 8 on up. There's a bunch of PowerShell commands though. So like what happens is you're running SMB 3 point something. Okay, if you're doing 8 or 8.1 or 10. Or 2 if you're on Windows 7, exactly. And those guys should work down level. But one thing you're going to be seeing, I'm guessing, something that I'm hearing on the server side a lot, is that it'd be a good idea at some point to turn off SMB1, to block SMB1, because there's so many ways to attack. But that doesn't happen by default yet. But anyway,
Nope, you've got it.
so and by the way, you may know, that's one of the really good news things about both the new version of server and the new version of the desktop, is that SMB just gets better and better and better. SMB3 is astoundingly cool. If you do cluster stuff, it's amazing what they're doing now, seriously.
All right, we got the guy with the mic right there, and then I'll take it from you, and we'll stage back there and up here. Sammy, maybe this guy right here.
I have 2 questions about biometrics, if that's allowed. And first one is there any hardware partnering going on for biometrics, like for either using eyes or fingers, whatever you're choosing to use?
Where's the speaker so I can?
Right here.
Okay. So can you repeat the question? I couldn't. You were asking, is there hardware sensors?
Yeah. Is there any hardware partnering going on to enable the fingers or eye biometrics?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Windows 8, we had fingerprint support, and of course Lenovo's had swipe sensors. We talked about touch sensors, but the reality was that the OEM pipeline and the cost of goods on the new touch sensors that you see on the iPhone were too expensive to do it at scale. But what we're starting to see is those trickle in the market. In fact, I think there's one device, I forget the manufacturer, that has shipped the first touch fingerprint sensor. So that's already in the market. And there's a pipeline that we'll see a lot more of those show up. We also have other features other than fingerprints. We have iris support and also facial. The Intel RealSense camera is available in, I believe, 4 devices right now. There's an HP Envy, there's a Dell device, and then Lenovo has an all-in-one. The other 2 are mobiles. I don't know about the 4th device, but I think there's a 4th one in the market right now. And so the RealSense camera has been positioned as a 3D gesture connect-like thing. So if you go to the Intel site and learn about it, you're not going to hear about anything about biometrics. What we did is we took advantage of the IR camera that they were using for all these other things, and we basically repurposed it for biometrics. So we can do facial with that. There will be iris support. We're not talking a lot about the sensors there, but there will be more information later in the product cycle. So yes, there's going to be a pipeline. Intel's already pushing their sensors. We're seeing those show up in devices. And I've seen the product sheets for the devices that we'll see later this year. So I think you're going to see a lot of devices with one of these types this year and more into next. You had a second question as well?
Yeah. So how do you manage your admin ID with multiple fingers? I mean, is that what the solution is, to use multiple fingers?
So how do you switch between your user account, which is standard user, and maybe the local admin account?
Correct.
Yes, you would use different fingers for that.
Gotcha.
Good, great question. Thank God we have 10 fingers, right?
You guys really think biometrics is going to be good?
Absolutely. I mean, we're really standing behind biometrics. It really is it's a more secure way of...
No. Here's my problem. If the only thing standing between a bad guy and getting my data is a piece of my body, I have no data that is more important than even the least important part of my body, and I'm not telling you what that is. You know, so isn't that, you can't revoke a thumb. You know.
Well, that's why you have 9 other fingers. So if we do lose the template for your index finger,
so it'll be like, why do you only have? I've been an IT pro for 25 years. This is the only digits I have left. Okay.
No, I mean, but seriously, from a security standpoint, we believe it's better than the alternative, which is a PIN. A PIN still is 2 factors. The PIN itself is not 2 factors, but you use a PIN in combination with Microsoft Passport, the passport being the actual credential, or your certificate or your key-based authenticator. But we believe that biometrics is better because somebody can shoulder surf your PIN, and if they're able to steal your device, then they can be you. But now they're going to have to steal your face and your device.
And again, all those things you were talking about, running that little magic Hyper-V machine that's kind of separated in another universe from the rest of the
Yeah, that's true. So if we kind of explain how the whole thing works, there's really 2 components for authentication in Windows 10. One is the Microsoft Passport component, and this is really just basically it's like a smart card. Right? It's a virtual smart card. It can use a certificate that comes from PKI. It can use the keys that Windows itself will create. But unlike a smart card, it also can use biometrics. Smart card, by definition, requires a PIN, and so we can use biometrics as an option. So this is a vastly more flexible option. So that is going to be the credential that you use, and you can unlock it with a PIN, or you can unlock it with Windows Hello. And Windows Hello is nothing more than the biometrics option of unlocking access to your passport, and you can use the 3 options that we just talked about. Oh, and you did mention the VSM, so I'm sorry, I kind of lost track of that. So there's a new feature in Windows. It's an architectural change, the way the system boots, depending on if you opt in to configure your PC in this way. We'll leverage a Type 1 hypervisor, and we will boot certain components of Windows, components that are sensitive, like the LSA service. We have a virtual TPM feature, and then we also have the Microsoft Passport capability in there as well. So rather than storing your credentials in the Windows OS, which would create the condition such that if the kernel was compromised, an attacker could steal your credentials, we put these things inside the VSM, at least the derived credentials, and create the condition where it's difficult to steal and start the pass-the-hash attack. The passport credential itself is protected by the TPM. So we take your certificate, we take the keys we create, and we bind that to the PC using the TPM. So you can't steal that and replay that on another device, because if you're able to acquire it, it will be in a encrypted form. It can only be used on the device itself. So just to recap, the VSM is a Hyper-V based solution. All your derived credentials live in there, which means we can eliminate pass-the-hash. The credentials for Microsoft Passport are being protected in the main OS, but using the TPM. So we have theft-proof capability as a result of that. So.
But you don't need a TPM to run Windows 10.
You do not. No. Yeah. So we'll support Microsoft Passport without TPM, and the promise that we can't give you in that case is we can't prevent theft, right? If there's a malware on your PC and it's able to get system privilege, it's going to be able to steal that credential, and then it could be replayed. When we have a TPM, the credential itself is then binded to the PC, it's encrypted, and so it makes it non-replayable. So we support either case, and even without TPM, you're still better off than a password, because with Microsoft Passport, one of the inherent features, because we're moving to asymmetrical key-based auth versus symmetrical authentication, which is what a password is, which means that your password you know and AD knows your password. With asymmetrical-based auth, it's inherently and architecturally phish-proof. So even without a TPM, we can eliminate phishing of your identity. And we can also prevent a breach in the data center from compromising your identity as well. The thing we can't do is prevent somebody who has physical access to steal that and maybe replay that on another device.
Cool. We had a question over here.
Yeah, on the front row.
Yes, thank you. The question I have is, my company lives in the financial sector, and one of the things we've been struggling with as an IT company servicing the finance industry is how do we remediate local admin rights, the risk of such a large number of developers and IT pros in our organization needing local admin rights to do a lot of the common stuff they do. A good example would be host file modifications and other things like that. Please share with me anything new in Windows 10 that allows me to selectively give my end users greater privileges without having to give them full local admin rights.
Yeah. This one's a little bit out of my area. I'd probably defer to the server team. Do we have anybody who knows about
Actually, I do know.
LAPS and some of the other technologies?
Sure.
Great.
Well, okay, so I'm Jeremy Moskowitz, Group Policy MVP. So actually, this is an area that I do know a little bit about. The good news for you is that Microsoft literally last Friday, so I talked about it in my talk yesterday, and Aaron Margosis will have a talk on this idea called LAPS, or Local Admin Password Service, I think is what it's called. The general gist is that it runs as a group policy service, and that it gets its directives from group policy and will encrypt the local admin password and store it in Active Directory in encrypted form. Well, sorry, actually in clear text form, which sounds bad, but it's actually not. Hold on, it's not. Because you have dictated what group has access to this. If you want to see this in action, again, I did not get a chance to demo it in my session, but Aaron Margosis, and I can't remember who his partner on that talk is, Mark Simos, thank you very much. It's going to be 5 o'clock today. His talk is called Barbarians at the Gates. And I don't know, and then there's like 9 other words after that. But if you look in the schedule for Barbarians at the Gates, you'll at least see how to handle half of the problem. Now, the second half of your problem is how to do selective, like on-demand kind of things. Now, the good news is actually, in the vendor, partner, boothy area, there's at least 2 or 3 vendors that have solutions that do that. Now, they're not inexpensive options because they're doing kind of scary magic, right? Like, when this condition is true, elevate these permissions, and then give me access to do these things under this amount of time and stuff like that. Also, Sammy also has his own tool, which is available. I'm just mentioning it because it's part of that ecosystem. And do you want to finish a thought on that? Yeah.
So I think there might be a bigger question behind this, which would be that all the third-party tools that are actually doing process or thread level elevation of whatever you want to do, that's actually still in the built-in APIs of Windows. So all the third-party tools are actually using built-in stuff from Windows, but if what you are looking for is answer of will Windows itself be able to use its own stuff, there's no information on that being available.
Okay, Jeremy, may I ask, now, this LAPS,
Yes.
will this load on Windows 7 and 8, or you need Windows 10?
No, 7, 8, and 10. It's ready to rock on 10.
So we're giving them a reason not to buy Windows 10? I'm just checking.
It's a holistic solution for what they have now and for the future. How was that? Was that good, Microsoft friends? Was that all right? So long story short, it works. The LAPS, I didn't actually get to mention this part in the talk, and I did get several people ask me about the supportability on LAPS. It's got the same level of support as like Emmet, if you're familiar with the Enhanced Mitigation Toolkit series of tools that Microsoft has. It has the same kind of like you are a Microsoft customer. So when you make a call, someone will support you. So I got that question about LAPS. So it doesn't ship in the box. It ships outside. They call it out of band, which means you install it on your own, and then you get a different kind of support for it. But it is a supported tool as of Friday from Microsoft. So LAPS, local admin password. I think it's either service or services, something like that.
And if I can toss out one more answer to your question of how do I give regular old users very, very fine detailed, fine criterion. Look at the GIA toolkit, the Just Enough Administration stuff that Jeffrey Snower put together. It's intended for server, but it works just fine. It's freaking awesome. What it does is it uses desired state configuration for me to be able to say, I create a session on some machine, and you have the ability to access it remotely, assuming you have the credentials. And that doesn't make you an administrator. It makes you an administrator in very fine-grained. What actually ends up happening is I put you in a box. So you're Clark Kent. I put you in this box, and you become Superman, but you only have super strength. You don't have, invulnerability, which is a problem. But only comic people would laugh at that, and that's none of you. So anyway, the way it works is that you take the billions of PowerShell commands that are possible, and it pares down that you can only use these 3. You can only pass them these arguments. It can only be used for 15 minutes, and then it times out. Very exciting stuff. It's in its early days, but looking at GIA is a really good idea. Sorry, it's a free download from Microsoft.
That session was just in the last hour.
Oh, did somebody do a GIA session here?
Yeah, I projected it. And
of course, duh.
Privileged access management, which will integrate with that, and you can say you're an admin and can do this thing for 1 hour.
Exactly. Yeah. So part of it is GIA, Just Enough Administration, and the other part is JIT. Okay, so just in time. And so the notion is, what ends up happening is really interesting, is that, if you think about it in Windows, it would be really hard for me to say, you can touch that for an hour. And you know why? You say, well, wait a minute, I'd have a timeout on your account, Mark, or I'd have a timeout. No, it turns out that there's a lot of pieces of Windows on the server side where, theoretically it's been there, but there's always been, it hasn't worked exactly right. And so there's some interesting changes that are being updated on the server side as well to make this stuff all possible. So again, limited amount, very limited capabilities, and very limited amounts of time. So it's stuff that you definitely want to be looking at. Okay? We got another question.
My question is about the licensing for the free upgrade. We're a small business. We've consumed Windows Pro in many forms. We've got some retail. We've got some OEM. We even have a few from an expired EA. We're just wondering, if we like to install the free upgrade across all those, is there going to be an easy way to get the correct licensing key for that, or are we going to be going back to, okay, this OEM box, you got to find the sticker on it and put in this code, and then you'll get that converted over to a 10 code, and you got to keep doing that for all
Is that Michael?
machines you have.
Where did the mics go to?
They all gone? All right, coming back.
Here, talk to me. That's going to be on Twitter in like seconds.
I'm Helen Hermitz, and I'm a product manager on the Windows marketing team. So the upgrade is free for pro machines, for retail machines. So they will get a notification, and it'll go up. And if you don't get the notification, you can also go to Windows.com and get the update. You don't need to enter old keys, etc. It will do the work for you.
And if I recall correctly, Terry Myerson said that you guys would even let people update pirated copies. Is that right? Did I understand that right?
I'm not commenting on that.
Well, no, it was in the blog. No, seriously, it was in the blog. Did I get it wrong? I apologize.
I think it's a little more complicated than that.
Oh, okay.
Get your upgrade on your licensed machines. It'll all work great, and then we'll keep you up to date going forward.
Mark, everybody here is in compliance. Don't worry about this crowd. They're all clear. I've cleared.
Jeremy,
there you go.
If you think you're in compliance with Windows licensing, that means you think you understand Windows licensing.
Of course.
And if
silly me.
Job security, understanding Windows licensing.
So true. Thank you, by the way. Keeps me in business. That's right. All right, another question here somewhere.
Yeah. If we want to use Configuration Manager 2012 R2 with next week's service pack to deploy software updates to Windows 10, is there any functionality we're missing out as compared to using Windows Update for Business? Are we only getting security, or do we get the OS updates? Basically, what's the difference between those two?
Where's Johan when you need him?
Yeah, no, you're fine. You can use Config Manager to deploy updates and feature updates of Windows 10 with the latest ones coming.
No difference?
No loss in functionality. No. You don't. The rings is an additional benefit for you. If you want to set up rings, you could do that, but you don't have to.
Cool. That was an easy one.
I have an easy question, hopefully. In Windows 7, you guys had a functionality
Where are you? Raise your hand so we can see.
Easy Transfer, and that was in 8, and then you took it out in 8.1. Is there any chance you're going to bring back Easy Transfer or a GUI-based user migration tool?
No.
That was an easy question.
See, easy question, easy answer. I mean, it was taken away because they thought no one used it, and now people are asking for it. So we're still having the conversation with the team that created that to see if it can be resurrected, but it won't happen for Windows 10 RTM.
People with the mics are in the back, so we've already assigned 3 questions.
I got a question right here.
Go for it.
All right. So, is Cortana require you to use a Microsoft account? I was noticing that last version I was using. And the follow-up question to that is, does Windows 10 do anything to help enterprises manage Microsoft accounts for individual users?
I'll take the Cortana question, and Michael can take the MSA question. Cortana in its current iteration today does require Microsoft accounts. We have taken lots of feedback. We know that we need to work on integrating Cortana with Azure AD Join so that it becomes a more interesting proposition for enterprise customers. We don't have a roadmap to share at this time, but we know it. We're working on getting that done.
Okay, good. Right here? Oh,
well, the second half.
Got it.
Microsoft accounts aren't designed to be enterprise manageable. They're personal accounts. So we're not adding any management capabilities for Microsoft accounts. What we're doing instead is adding support for Azure AD accounts throughout Windows 10. So to do business type things like using the business store and acquiring apps for organization use, you use Azure AD for that. You just use an MSA for your personal stuff.
Can I ask along those lines, how many of you have Office 365 in your organization? Okay, if you don't know, you get an Azure AD account free with that. So
everyone gets an Azure AD account for free because Azure AD is free.
Well, wait. So if I didn't, according to a Microsoft blog, if I didn't have O365 and I went to Azure and said I want to create a domain, it's going to charge me $1 a person per month, right?
There are multiple levels of Azure AD support. There's an Azure AD Free, Azure AD Basic, and Azure AD Premium.
No, I know that, but the page that describes that says you only get the free if you've got Office 365. Or maybe I misread it.
The basic one comes with Office 365 or Windows Intune. The free one can be used separately. There are limitations with the free one, but there's no charges associated with that.
Thank you. I'll have to go reread the blog.
Premium, then, yeah, you're going to be paying for premium. Like I have like 7 of my own Azure Active Directory tenants because I keep creating more of them, and I pay nothing for those.
I would
hope
so.
You just need to have an Azure subscription.
Cool. And as long as we're doing that, can you review what's the difference between basic and premium in terms of the $1 a month versus the $4 a month?
That's where I would have to go to the web page and see what the differences are. So it's more around the number of objects, the ability to do password resets online, group management.
I thought you needed premium to do MFA.
Multi-factor authentication.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there is a list of additional features that get added.
All right, then.
Okay, so in queue, we've got 1,
All
2,
right.
3.
I got a application compatibility question. Now, when we migrated from Windows 7 to Windows 8, there was an assurance that most, if not all, applications that were working on Windows 7 64-bit would work on Windows 8 and 8.1, so on and so forth. We're an organization with about 3,500 applications and planning on going on a pilot for Windows 10. Is there any assurance that the applications that are currently working on 8.1 would work flawlessly on Windows 10, or do we have to seek out to vendors for updated driver packs?
Flawless is an interesting term. We are making the same assurances, though, that applications that work on 7 and 8.1 will work on Windows 10. So you guys need to tell us, right, especially right now as we are in preview, if you guys are seeing application compatibility issues, please let us know, because we need to work that out before we ship. But we have not heard massive feedback or really any significant feedback. I'm looking at my team on app compat with Windows 10 coming from 7 or 8.
And what's the driver story? So what about the driver story? Will 8.1 drivers work on 10, or are there classes that will not? Or
They should.
At any rate, I want to add a little to this, because the security app compatibility is a little bit of a different story. So I think the user mode apps, that's perfectly consistent. What we're doing on the security side is a little different. The challenges we have with third-party antivirus in particular, there's never been a version of Windows that shipped that didn't break previous versions of that. And so it actually wasn't a typical app compatibility issue as you'd think about it. So what McAfee and Symantec and others do to do the amazing work they do to detect malware is, rather than using all the APIs that we provide them, they actually do undocumented things. So they go into memory directly and they poke around. And so when they're doing things that are not on the rails, meaning they're not using APIs to do their work, there's no way for us to know what they're doing. And so there's no way for us to keep them compatible. So what we did after 8 is we sat down with them and said, what are the things that you need so you don't have to get off the rails and do these things in an undocumented and technically unsupported way. So we've added a new eventing channel. It's a low-level thing that gives them access to pretty much everything they've asked for. And now with the new versions of McAfee that they'll ship for Windows 10, they will leverage these events to do their work rather than going in an undocumented way. And from an app compatibility perspective, we should be able to carry those products forward without breaking them. But what will require is it requires that they adapt to these new events rather than using it in an undocumented way. So your current version of McAfee is going to break on 10. But when they get the patch for it, then they'll be on a supported path moving forward.
Super. Okay. Okay, great.
For BitLocker, do I need to change any of my BitLocker policies, configurations for Windows 10?
So the question is, do you need to change anything?
Yeah, I've got BitLocker policies right now for my Windows 7, and I'm just wondering if we need to do anything different or new for Windows 10.
No, you won't need to make any changes, but there's maybe a change that we might recommend. So one of the things that people are doing that's actually creating some pain for users is where you typically are forcing your users to use TPM plus PIN on devices that are maybe immune to cold boot attacks. And so the reason why we need the PIN in place is we want to create the condition where when the PC boots, the encryption key isn't in memory on a device where a cold boot attack would allow the person to steal the key. So we did a bunch of work in Windows 8 and 8.1 and now even more in 10, such that that key can be protected all the way from boot all the way to Windows logon. And for that reason, you may not need PIN anymore. So there's a white paper that I wrote. It's called BitLocker Countermeasures. And if you read that paper, it's 25 pages, you'll be able to say, these are the devices that I have in my organization that need a PIN because they're susceptible to cold boots. Or here's mitigations I can add. Here I can turn off FireWire. I can make these changes to my config. So even though the device is susceptible to it, you can prevent it using a config. Or better yet, here's modern devices that are Windows 8 or greater that are just fundamentally immune to cold boot attacks. Surface 3 Pro would be a great example of that. In fact, any Instant Go device which doesn't have DMA ports and has memory that's fixed to the disk and UEFI, they're not susceptible to all the cold boot attacks. So we're in a world now where we don't necessarily need PIN, and so I'd ask you to think about your policy and only provision PIN when required.
Can I add a little something to his question?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think what I heard you say is, do I have to change anything different from Windows 7 and onward? And actually, one of the things that a lot of folks missed between the transition between Windows 7 to 8 and continuing onward to 10 is that you don't have to pre-BitLocker the snot out of the whole drive first, which can take hours. You can just turn it on in Windows 8 and then, or Windows 8 and later, including Windows 10, and it will BitLocker the data as it goes in, as opposed to waiting for the whole darn thing, which I think a lot of people missed the memo on that, and it's kind of a big change. It was one of the kind of detractors of getting started with BitLocker, and that's kind of been erased since Windows 8. So I just figured I would add that to to hopefully answer your question.
Well, and Jeremy, I think the reason people don't know that is that the GUI doesn't give you the option. You have to use the command line tools, which is always the better answer, but still.
Yes. Right. So what happens is you turn it on and say, I don't want to do the whole drive now. I want to do the data. I want to do data as it gets laid to disk. And so as stuff gets encrypted or gets laid to disk, that's when it gets encrypted. So it's kind of happening on the fly. So there's really never a point of unprotection because, well, there is no point of unprotection. It's not considered. Chris, do I have that right?
It's not, but it's not necessary, right? So if you encrypt every bit as it's being laid down, I don't need to encrypt the volume, which is a bunch of zeros. So it's just-in-time encryption, basically. The reason why, and Mark has a good point, thank you for bringing it up, that why do we not have this option in the UI? The reason why is let's imagine you had a PC that was not encrypted, and then you formatted the drive not using the NSA style secure wipe, which wipes it like 10 times. Yeah. What would happen is you could recover those unencrypted sectors. So use disk space-only encryption, which is the feature we're talking about, should only be used on a brand new PC that's never had data on it. Because if you wipe it and then lay down a new image, let's say you got 1 terabyte drive, you lay down 30 gigabytes on it, well, you could have 700 plus gigabytes of data that's formatted but recoverable using recovery tools.
So a naughty guy could go in and grab the data.
Yeah, so be careful when you use that, but it's a great feature on new PCs.
Okay, great. All the way in the back.
So I have a question about, I guess, going from Pro to Enterprise. Right now, you can't buy Enterprise from an OEM. Is there an easy way to get from Pro to Enterprise?
You will not be able to buy Enterprise from an OEM with Windows 10 unless your OEM is a system integrator for your business. We've done a bunch of technologies to enable an in-place upgrade from Pro to Enterprise once you have the appropriate license for it.
Yeah, and we actually demonstrated that this week, that it's not even an in-place upgrade. It's literally just apply a product key, reboot the machine, and now you're running Enterprise. So it's very easy to do. So while you still can't buy it with Enterprise, you can take it to Enterprise without re-imaging it.
Where's our next question?
So my question's about browsers. In the current preview, with the two browsers, it's kind of a disjointed experience. And I'm hoping in the RTM
You find yourself with these browsers facing a somewhat Spartan existence? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I'm wondering what you're doing to make that more cohesive. So when it detects that IE11 should have been used, and you click on the link, it opens a second IE11, and for regular users, that's going to be an issue, right? I'm hoping they're working towards fixing that.
We think we forgot to invite the IE guy. But it is something that Fred's talked about in his sessions, that there's certainly an intent to make that more seamless. It's not going to be within the same frame. You're still going to be dealing with two different browsers, but at least it should be able to make it easier for you to get from one to the other.
So your users aren't currently using IE sometimes and Chrome the rest of the time already?
They're just using Chrome now.
I don't know. Good. Our next question, where?
Yes, there is. And Edge would put up a message telling you that the web page you're trying to access doesn't work with this browser. Click here to launch IE. That's the part that they want to make a little more seamless, that maybe as soon as you type in the URL, it just pops into IE. So they are looking at some ways of making that easier.
And the thing, by the way, the thing also is, I hear a lot of people saying bad things about IE11, and I understand why, but if you haven't done it yet, taking the time to learn about the various page modes, the enterprise mode, really does let you solve a lot of stuff. It can be really quite helpful. So even if you haven't gone to Windows 10, if you're on Windows 8 and you're saying we have this IE11 problems, take a look at the enterprise mode stuff. It's really useful.
Okay, question all the way in the back.
Yeah, we have about 2,000 users, remote users, who are about 120 miles from the nearest office. With the advancements in VPN, MDM, Azure, Active Directory, is there now a methodology that we can allow those users to image offline, do a domain join, leveraging some of these newer technologies available in Windows 10?
Well, yeah, kind of. We showed some demos throughout the week. I know Janani showed one in the Foundation Center foundation session where we were using Azure AD and mobile device management and automatically enrolling a device into an MDM service at the same time we did the AAD join. So Azure Active Directory just natively works across the internet, so there's no need to be able to connect to the corporate network. Mobile device management is also cloud-based, so all the management happens over the internet. So there's no connectivity requirements or infrastructure requirements to do that.
It's also true, Michael, that he could, if he wanted to, use direct access to extend his VPN without a VPN, more or less, and that person could domain join the current natural way. That's still true, yes?
Well, no.
Okay.
The challenge is, in order to make a direct access connection, you need to be joined to the domain and receiving group policies. So it's a chicken and egg problem.
Right.
You can't join the domain via direct access because you can't use direct access until you've joined the domain. So you can make a VPN connection and use the VPN connection to join the domain and get the direct access policies, and then you can use direct access moving on from there.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. Okay. Cool. Go ahead. It's
Our next question.
Hi. We also, during the keynote, new features Cortana has. It's actually unbelievably cool. But my main question is it possible to hide a few folders on your home workstation? Is your favorite IT stuff from your wife and etc.? Maybe even with marks, tapes and stuff.
Let me repeat the question back, make sure we got it. Okay. So is your question, can you hide certain folders in the Explorer UI? Is that your question?
No, from Cortana, if my girlfriend wants to see what I'm up to. What? Well, we all know that what's our favorite stuff, like marks, tapes, IT materials.
So you want to prevent Cortana history? Is that your question?
Jeremy, I got the answer.
Okay, good.
Every version of Windows comes with Hyper-V. And you can build several separate virtual machines. I would just go with the fun virtual machine and the one the girlfriend can see. So. Oh boy. Come on.
Yeah, good thing you didn't say your name.
I think that gets the prize for the best question so far. Can someone top it?
We have
no question over here? What's the answer? The answer was apparently not. I was suggesting a second virtual machine for the browsing the more interesting parts of the internet. And
yeah, so you can configure your interests in Cortana, but if you're on the same user and your same MSA, you just configure it for yourself. Yeah. I mean, if your girlfriend's using your MSA, then she will see however you've configured her. Cortana, that is. Next question.
Whoa.
Oh.
Okay, moving on.
You can configure your girlfriend?
That would be. This is a family show.
Yeah, okay. So,
my MSA I'm using at the house.
Okay, so you have MSA using the house?
An MSA for the enterprise.
Here.
Okay, so if we have the same MSA for your home machine when you're home, and the same MSA when you're in enterprise at the office, Cortana is going to have the same information. If I want to search for something that's relevant only to the enterprise, I don't want recipes that I was searching for earlier to show up. So, I mean, it's still relevant. Do I need to have two separate Microsoft accounts?
For Cortana work mode, Cortana home mode.
Right now there's not a Cortana work mode or home mode. We've gotten that feedback though, but right now it's one Cortana. So your interests, are tied to your MSA account, and that's how those interests are stored in the Bing Cloud. So it goes from home to enterprise, and there's no separation right now.
So it would probably be a good idea to have two MSAs, one for your work and one for home.
Yes, if that's. Yeah, I mean, this is why honestly, this is why I talk pretty openly with customers that I don't feel that Cortana today is ready for enterprise. I think she's ready for small businesses at times, and depending on how lenient your MSA policies are. But we're working on addressing that feedback and getting Cortana ready for enterprise over time. What? But you have policies to appropriately
Is
use
there a group
Cortana if
policy
you need
setting
to.
this is Jeremy over here. Is
Yes.
there going to be a group policy setting to turn Cortana off or configure it as needed?
Yes. Yeah, there's an MDM policy and a group policy too, right? Yeah.
Okay, you said it.
Just facts, guys.
I'm going to
Just facts.
verify it.
And sir, did you want to add something? Please, come up. Take the mic.
I was just going to say that disabling, having two MSAs for a Cortana on work and another Cortana identity, if you will, for personal, could be an option, but it also brings many other issues like not leveraging some of the content that you have in one and in the other. You're effectively having two completely separate identities that are
Two store accounts.
It's two store accounts, so that brings many other issues as well.
That's a good point. Thanks.
Okay, all the way on the left. Go ahead. Yes.
I have a question about Windows Hello, and how will it work with domain-joined computers, and what kind of devices will be supported?
So for the first question, it supports, there's no real implications on domain accounts. Windows Hello is the unlock mechanism for the passport, which is compatible with domain accounts. In fact, it was maybe designed for that first, but then the nice side effect was the technology we built also works great for consumers. So even consumers will be able to move to Microsoft Passport, which is an enterprise-grade two-factor authentication solution. And then the second question was about the devices or support.
What kind of devices will be supported? What hardware do you need?
Right. So you'll need one of the three sensor types that we have. So we have facial, fingerprint, and iris. Existing devices, I know Lenovo's kind of went all in on swipe sensors. Those will be supported. HP has devices with swipe sensors. So pretty much everything you have in the marketplace with a fingerprint sensor will be supported with Hello. Anything with a RealSense camera today, which is a market I mentioned, there's like 3 or 4 of those devices in market. Those will support Hello, and then anything else down the road that has RealSense will support that as well. There's also a USB-attached RealSense camera that you can buy. It's called the F200. So if you want to connect that to the monitor, if you have a desktop PC, go grab that, and that'll support Windows Hello. And then there are IR-specific cameras. So the thing that's important about Hello, at least in facial and iris, is we're not using RGB. RGB is just color. We're using infrared to get an image, and that's a lot harder to spoof. So at any rate, there's going to be a whole bunch of IR cameras that you can put in addition to the RGB camera that might be on your laptop, and you can use that. So there's a bunch of things in the pipeline. We can't announce all the different variables of them, but the idea is that this year you're going to really feel like biometrics is becoming mainstream in consumer and commercial devices. And then next year we expect that we could come to a place where maybe we're pervasive across all price points even.
Okay, what's the plan for the future? Is it just going to be at the device level, or can I also log into other websites and so on, with the same authentication?
So a great question. So Windows Hello is as I keep on saying this because it can be confusing. So Windows Hello is the unlock mechanism to unlock your device and the container that contains a series of one or more Microsoft passports. So you will have a passport for your Microsoft account. You'll have one for AD and Azure AD. So you can have a series of these things. This isn't designed not just for Microsoft networks. It's designed also for the web. So when you sign into a Windows 10 device in your consumer life and you use your Microsoft account, you're going to be moved automatically away from a password right away, which is great. So as soon as you get Windows 10, give that to your mom or your wife, she's going to be moving to enterprise-grade strong auth inherently. Now, the thing that's interesting is you may have a series of devices. You got one Windows 10 device, you got maybe a couple of Windows 7 or 8 devices, and those don't support password. So we can't eliminate passwords immediately for you in that scenario where we have a bunch of devices, but we do have an option in Microsoft account and AD and Azure that will allow you to, for your account, say, hey, I've got enough devices that are all Windows 10. I'm going to stop using passwords, period. right? And you don't have a password anymore for your Microsoft account or AD Azure. So there's a point in time where you're going to feel like it's the right time to move all in and eliminate passwords from your life. So there's a transition period depending on the range of devices that you want to use.
Are any of those devices going to be in the next service?
Are they?
Are any of those devices going to be built into the next service then?
Chris, can you repeat it?
The question is, what is Surface planning to announce sometime in the future? I can't comment on that for obvious reasons. Microsoft believes in biometrics, obviously, and so we'll see what the Surface team does futuristically.
Where's our next question, Jeremy?
Are there any improved capabilities in independent monitor scaling? And will we finally be able to scale the monitors without having to sign out of Windows?
So this question's about DPI, and if you increase the font size in DPI, you have to log out and log back in.
There are definitely improvements, and I've read through long dissertations talking about what those improvements are and didn't understand a word of it. So the main suggestion would be try it out with the current builds because some of those improvements are showing up, but certainly having the system more intelligently figure out the per DPI differences on multiple monitors and scale things appropriately is a strong goal.
Michael, I thought I read in one of the lists of Win 10 things that Win 10 looks at the DPI of your monitor and it uses that to adjust font size. And that this is important
really
because
uses it to scale the entire UI. So the most recent blog posting that Gabe had put out on the the 10,074 build talked about high DPI changes in that build. They're not finished yet. They are still working on that, but it's complicated.
Well, I know that people with Surface 3s, Surface Pro 3s, great, lovely screen, but because it's so high DPI, I need my big boy glasses, to be able to read that stuff. And apparently with Windows 10, it gets a lot more readable.
Great. There you go.
I have a question regarding Cortana.
Where are you? Raise your hand. I lost you. Raise your hand. I can't see you.
Over here.
Okay. Thank you.
How is the language for Cortana configured? Is it done in in the application itself? Does it depend upon the language pack on the client?
No.
It is done in the regional settings, and in regional settings you will have to install the speech package, the keyboard layout package, and the language package. All those three are required to be on a language that Cortana supports. So, for example, today you have to have all of those in US English, UK English, and I think traditional Chinese. And when we expand the languages, you will have to have all those three on something that Cortana understands.
Does Cortana customize its response to the language you use at all? So if you use regional
It does.
English,
It does.
okay, respond to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Will there be a southern version?
Only for you.
Okay, right next to me, right here.
With Windows 10 being ran everywhere on so many different devices and things like Continuum and Win32 apps going into the store and being available there, does that mean I'll be able to run Win32 apps on my Windows phone, even though it's like an Atom processor?
No.
Hi, I'm Samesh. So there's a difference between the desktop and the mobile editions. The desktop will run Win32, WPF, Universal Apps, and the Store apps. On the mobile, you'd be able to run Store apps and Universal apps, right? And Windows Phone apps as well, as you have them today. So there will be no Win32 apps on mobile.
All right, who is it back here? Where are you? Raise your hand. There you go. Pass it over, pass it over. And then there's another one back here. Where are you?
One question about partitioning. So if I want to have the features from security side, maybe is there a convenient way to convert the MBR to GPT when I go from Windows 7 to Windows 10? Sorry.
Yeah, the question was talking about converting disk from MBR to GPT, which also implies converting the machine from legacy BIOS emulation to UEFI. And that's one of those ballet-type moves that we don't attempt to automate. We would say that in order to reconfigure the device from non-UEFI to UEFI, you just back up the data to the network, wipe it clean, reconfigure the device, install a new OS, and then pull the data back down again. There's just too many things that need to be changed. The partition structure needs to be changed, the BIOS settings need to be changed, and it's not possible to do all at once.
Okay, right in the middle of the room. There you go.
Hi, are there any changes in direct access between 8.1 and 10?
No. Heike says no.
Were you waiting for one? Is there a particular thing that you were thinking, hey, maybe they'll solve this? Or big changes, yeah, from 7 to 8, absolutely.
So there won't be any changes for direct access, but we have new remote access solutions coming with Windows 10. They're called per app VPN. So that means you can, like the VPN connects per app, and only the apps that you configure can use this VPN tunnel. So there will be a new remote access solution available in Windows 10. Oh, it's always on, exactly. So what do you want to add something, Janina?
We also have an auto connect or an always-on VPN, so you can configure it such that the minute you log onto your device, your VPN is automatically connected. So that is a good, if you want to kind of think about that in place of direct access, that will be a great solution to use across your devices.
Yes, especially because, the feedback was direct access only works with domain joined computers, as Michael said before, and VPN, of course, also works for non-domain joined clients and not only Windows clients. So it's a huge benefit for enterprise customers to use the existing VPN infrastructure, for instance, and then add this per app new remote access solution.
How is that configured?
Did those things first? Didn't those things appear in 8.1 and Server 2012 R2? I mean, you're talking about the web application proxy, right?
No. I can't listen to all people. Everybody's, yes, use it.
So the VPN connects automatically. So it is new in Windows 10. And somebody asked how can you configure it? So you can actually use management tools to configure the VPN.
I just want to say also that the VPN model applies consistently between phone, PC, and tablet as well. So there is a consistent VPN model that we have in there. Always VPN on, application trigger VPN, all that applies across phone, tablet, and PC.
Okay, great. Two guys down from him. Yep, raise your hand, wave. Yep, that's you. Yes, go.
In Windows 10 with remote desktop, are there any enhancements that would help with doing, engineering applications, especially like CAD and high graphic applications?
You're asking questions that require me to dig up my notes on that. There are enhancements. They're adding additional support for OpenCL, OpenGL, and accelerated GPU access, both using virtual GPUs and physical GPUs. So certainly enhancements to handle those types of applications. The specifics would be covered in one of the server sessions. I think they've got 1 or 2 sessions here talking about the specifics of how that's going to be implemented in the vNext server release.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I think I got my friend right here. Go ahead.
I'm probably not the only person who's going to ask this question that has clients that work for federal or state government. Are there any considerations we have to be aware of, especially with HSPD 12 or CAT cards and any of the weird kind of security stuff that, unfortunately, us federal contractors have to worry about?
Well, that question, to be honest, is a little hard to answer completely. So what I can tell you is this. When it comes to all the federal regulations like FIPS and even the DoD has its own internal compliance that they want us to go through, we're aggressively seeking all those things. So all the certifications that we required in the past with DoD and other federal agencies, we'll continue to do that. And maybe even possibly at an accelerated rate. to be quite honest. It's really important for us to get Windows 10 out there as quickly as possible. And there's huge demand, particularly in federal and DoD in particular, because of security. Trying to think what else we can say there. When it comes to CAC cards, you mentioned those. CAC cards, incidentally, are really just basically it's a smart card. It's a slightly different version of it. It's pretty much the same thing. DoD, government are very interested in Microsoft Passport as an alternative to that. So Microsoft Passport under the hood, pretty much the same type of thing. And CAC cards are expensive and challenging, and so Microsoft Passport is designed to address those challenges. And so they're looking very carefully at it right now, and we're making good progress. So we're very optimistic that in government that they might use that as an option.
Okay, right back next to me.
All right. Well, I apologize. This has already been covered, but is there an upgrade path for the Microsoft Surface RT?
Yeah.
How do we answer that one?
Throw it away. I so love my Surface too, but
yeah, we had the official PR response from the latest. Well, it wasn't the latest. It was actually from the January event, which was basically that there will be an update to the Windows RT devices to add some Windows 10 functionality, but they aren't going to run Windows 10.
Okay. Somebody, here we go.
I was wondering, how's Windows Hello handling generic accounts or multi-user single accounts?
So Windows Hello will support multiple user profiles. So each user in your house will have their own account or profile on the device, and they could all sign in with their unique face. One thing that's nice about Hello is the experience will quickly switch you over to the other account. It's not like you have to select the profile you want to sign into and then expose your face to the camera. As soon as you get in front of the PC, it's going to switch profiles on the fly. There's a scenario where maybe you want to have one profile that the whole house shares. Maybe you have a kitchen computer where there's really no concept of users. You will be able to, within the scope of what we would maybe consider a normal family, meaning a small group of people, you could actually all have them use their unique face in a single profile. In an environment, let's say retail, where you might have hundreds of employees, having them all register their face under a single profile would create the condition that pretty much anybody in the world can sign in. So we haven't figured out how many users can map their facial identity to a single user profile. We're doing the testing and the analysis now, but think of it as something that probably would work for a family, but not for a large organization with lots of people.
Okay, all the way on the left by Sammy.
In BYOD world right now, how can I explain to an end user what type of hardware they need to buy? If all of the platforms are called Windows 10, but they have varied support, i.e., if I tell somebody just get a Windows 10 device and they come in with an Xbox and ask me to join to the domain,
it'll just work.
Oh, okay. Are you coming up with standards or some sort of catchphrases or bullet points or some sort of scale that
maybe
this
a brand
is a Windows 10 premium device that supports productivity, and this is a Xbox.
So you're saying something like some kind of branding?
Yeah.
Real Windows, or something like that.
Would you like us to brand an Xbox to say that it's an Xbox? I think it will.
Well, I mean, we've been told everything's Xbox 10, or everything's Windows 10. They all run the same things and share the same code, and I think that the end users are also getting that message.
Now he's saying so. He works for some organization, and they're saying, we'll let you connect Windows 10, and somebody comes in with a phone, and which doesn't have all the capabilities of an Xbox.
Yeah.
And so is there a magic word that says real Windows?
I think if you tell the user buy a Windows PC that works
Is
instead
it-
of.
But what about
So yeah, if you say buy a Windows phone or a Windows tablet or a Windows PC, I think that's a message instead of go and buy a Windows 10 game console. It's Windows 10, it's the platform, it's the operating system, yes, and it runs on all those devices. But if you tell your employee, go and buy a Windows 10 laptop, a tablet, I think it should be able to make a difference between a phone and a tablet.
Agreed. Okay, next over here we
Not?
got.
Oops.
Can I just add a little note on that?
do remember that Windows, or that Xbox already uses a Windows OS currently. So it hasn't been branded to a... I haven't seen anyone making the mistake of buying an Xbox thinking that it can run Windows 8.1 stuff on it, on like joining a domain or something like that. So
if you can do that, I'd be impressed.
Yeah. So let me make one comment. So I can turn any question into a security topic if you allow me. And I think I might understand what you were thinking is there are certain devices that are going to have better capabilities than others, and there may be a cut line where an organization says, these are the devices that I'm going to allow into my organization. And when it comes to security, it's a more detailed conversation that we can have. But at this time, and I'll take this as feedback, we don't have like a min standard saying, hey, these are devices that we think are secure enough for DoD or secure enough for finance or whatever. And so we probably need to do some work to help articulate so you can influence people to buy devices that would meet your requirements. So we'll take that as feedback. But just to give you some ideas what those requirements might be hardware-wise, devices that have virtualization extensions, so vPro devices will enable you to run our new VSM technology, which gives you the pass-to-hash mitigations, device guard capability, and a bunch of other things, and TPM. So I think if you look for TPM, Windows 8 certified devices or greater, and processors that have virtualization extensions, meaning VTD or VTX, if those three things are there, I think we can meet the DoD bar. And by the way, those devices are actually commonplace even in consumer PCs. So I guess what I'm saying is most PCs will probably meet the security requirements you have, but there might be a subset that won't.
All right.
Does the always-on VPN or the per-app VPN require a specific server version, and does it work with third-party VPN servers?
It does not require a separate server version, and yes, it will work for all third-party plugins. So it's a platform-level enhancement.
Yes, it's an app like the VPN itself, and so other vendors, they're working on their own apps. So if you use a third-party VPN application right now, there will be an app available, and they can install it from the store, and then it runs. And it's as she said, there's no different server version required.
This guy's been waiting for 40 years.
So my question's probably on the more boring side, but it's on application compatibility, particularly following an upgrade scenario. So I have a Win32 application. It's got local machine settings. It's got user settings. It's got some data settings on a particular folder on the side. It's also running on a multi-user machine. Which one of those pieces, if any, will not be there following the upgrade? And I have to rely on some kind of self-healing or something along that lines.
Yeah, they'll all be there. The upgrade process, if you went to Aziz's session earlier, basically migrates everything. If it's not part of the operating system, we assume that it's important for an application, and we're going to grab it and move it over to the new OS and put it back where it was before. So all user registry settings, machine registry settings, user profile settings, files, even random garbage scattered around the system, we're going to migrate it forward just in case it's needed for an application.
All the way.
Another question?
Yep, by the wall.
Thanks. Are the enterprise data protection and 2016 DLP features the same features, and is Office 365 required for those?
Yeah, so EDP, Enterprise Data Protection, and RMS actually are kind of dovetailed together. So EDP provides standalone value, and that standalone value gives you a couple features. One is data ingresses to the PC from your network resources, whether they're on-prem or even in the cloud. That content will be protected at the file level. So that's one thing, encrypted data at the file level. We also have the ability to determine which applications will have access to that protected content. So you could say Microsoft Word we trust, but we don't trust maybe other apps like malware. So that's one option. Another option is you can set up EDP to automatically protect data. So let's imagine you have a line of business application or some app that you provision to your users where it should always create protected data. The user should never have an opportunity to say, well, I created a document that actually is mine and personal. So that's another feature. And then something we stole from RMS is we took the copy-paste protection and we put that in the platform now. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, kind of what EDP has. Where we need to go to RMS is for secure sharing. So we can protect all the data, but if it leaves the organization, we need to wrap that in RMS protection. And so that's kind of their role, is secure sharing within organization. So if I want to limit who within your organization has access to content, RMS does that. If I want to share B2B or B2C, or if I want to move that content to iOS or Android, RMS is the solution, plus Azure for the key management. Those are the solutions that make that scenario go. So EDP does provide a lot of value right away, and it's easy to configure, and so we expect most people will deploy that. To get to RMS maybe is a little more difficult, but with Azure, we've actually made that quite simple.
Now, how does that relate to the conditional access that we saw at the keynote?
I don't think it actually really has much of a relationship.
So that's different mechanisms then?
Yeah, so the conditional access feature is separate and orthogonal from that. Conditional access leverages a new cloud service that we have. Actually, it's not new. It's just been extended. There's a feature in Windows 8.1 called Provable PC Health. It's a cloud service that analyzes the boot integrity of your PC remotely, because when a PC has been rooted at the lowest level with a rootkit, you can basically assume the PC will never know it's infected, right? It's basically owned at that point. So we use what we call remote attestation from the cloud to do that. And conditional access is a feature that we've made available to in Intune and Mobile Iron and AirWatch. And what will happen is, as your BYOD devices, for example, connect to resources, let's say email, they would require the Provable PC Health to basically attest to the health state of the device before that client will get access to the email or to the VPN or whatever resources you want to limit. So conditional access is a lot like NAP, but much better, because we're using a remote resource to validate health rather than a client, which could be compromised and will always say it's healthy.
Very nice. Next question. Anybody?
Sammy back there?
I have a quick provisioning question. We've been hearing all week about how users can now go out and buy their own device, bring it in, they get a provisioning package, and that can help them join the domain, bring it up to Enterprise Edition, and a few other features that we've seen. The question I have is, can the provisioning package be used to remove software that can be previously identified?
There are two pieces to that. I know Samesh has demoed one of them, to remove modern apps that are built into the OS, so that part's working right now. The desktop applications or Win32 apps are a little more challenging. We had to support that via run command line type capabilities. Those aren't present in provisioning today. It's something that we're looking to add a little farther down the line. But at least we are updating Windows fairly periodically, so we can get those types of capabilities added in fairly quick.
We've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay, this might be our last question, so go
for
it.
From a deployment standpoint, there's a lot of new devices that are coming out that are wireless only, or even the Surface doesn't have a native Ethernet interface on it. Is there methodologies being developed to do a bare metal install with wireless?
Pass it down.
There certainly isn't today. I mean, you can do an in-place upgrade from an old OS to a new OS using wireless. That works fine. Bare metal, yeah, there needs to be some mechanism to get a boot image to the device, and then once that's done, some way of getting to the network to get the rest of the pieces. We've been talking about, for a long time actually, to get wireless support into Windows PE so that we could do the pulling of the rest of the data from the network. But even if we do that, it's not likely that we'll be able to pull down that initial boot image, because it's not like we can do PXE over the air. So there may be the need to use a USB key to initiate the process, but then use wireless to connect to the rest. It won't be there for Windows 10, but it is something that we're looking at farther down the line.
All right. So I guess that's about all we got time for. I want to thank all you guys for showing up. I particularly want to thank Sammy and Jeremy and the whole Windows team. You guys were great. Hey, folks. We only get to do this stuff when we get the feedback from you. If you haven't done it, please take a minute and evaluate the session. If you want to see us do this again, I think we got some great answers from the team. Other than that, I just say have a great show, and remember to use this knowledge for good and not for evil. Bye-bye.